Good evening, everyone. I'm here in Austin. Pramila is in New York. We're very, very excited about today's reading. This is, I think, our fifth reading in our series of Poets of Color, and we've been waiting to do this since last year. Sincerely thank all of you for participating. Really looking forward to listening to, I think, each unique voice. I'm really thrilled that we got a very good representation from Southeast Asia and from the Far East. And in general, we're just using the generic term Asian American. Um, I we have some very, very simple housekeeping rules. We generally will mute everyone, so there's just no disturbance and audio disturbances. Each poet gets 10 minutes. Uh, Before we begin, one little note of gratitude, and that's to poets and writers. We are Matwaala, and you can find us at www.matwaala.com. It was an initiative that began to increase the visibility of South Asian poets, diasporic South Asian poets in the United States. But when BLM broke out 3 years ago, we realized we had a larger vision, and that was to express solidarity to all the minority groups in the country, and that was really like I think really a new chapter for us in even understanding our own identity. So it's really with a very warm sense of solidarity that we're welcoming panel today. We have 8 poets. Very excited to meet all of you for the first time, and now the stage is yours. So, yeah, we begin with Allison, and we're going to post the bios in the chat so we can save some time instead of reading out bios that you can read. Oh, there's Ravi. Hi, Ravi. And so, yes, the stage is yours. It's for the poets, and we're here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here and to share some poems this evening. I'm going to kick this reading off with a food poem. So this is my ode to my cast iron pan. Cast iron. Everything goes into this 3-pound confessional, oil fragrant with peanuts, sometimes sesame, always garlic. It can reincarnate last night's rice that I cooked down hard until it's evolved into brown crunch infused with jasmine and salt. My skillet has gone to war, seared steaks, downed men, transformed flabby pork belly into an armor of crispy chicharron to be dipped in peppered vinegar or Tabasco. It has cradled countless uncarved chickens whose caverns have housed whole lemons sliced like cathedral windows of sun, apple pears, and the unmapped globes of onions. I bless the chicken with soy sauce, coconut vinegar, and even a bit of ginger that bites like a woman at the peak of bliss. This is how I get the men to love me. They devour, unarmed, spellbound by potatoes I've scalloped, then fried in butter and shallots. I've sauteed cod to a softness that renames their tongues, as if eating were 1,001 nights, and they can't move, and they wait for centuries on their knees, begging for just one more bite, just one more bite. I've been working a lot. Oh, thank you. I hope you're hungry. I've been working a lot with photographs and poems. So I'm going to share my screen, which is a photograph. This is the first photograph. Dryer. The firemen shattered every window to let out the smoke, glass raining on the pavement. I forgot my shoes, thinking thick socks and sweatshirt would be enough in November. They hosed down everything, slashed the ceiling with axes to make sure fire wouldn't climb upstairs. Hours later, I returned from my kitty, who was hiding beneath the piano, waiting, inches of water at my feet. I took her, my laptop, phone, unfinished manuscript, and my stuffed animal, a chinchilla, who travels with me as a reminder of home. I left the rest. The dryer worked in the bathroom. I revisit as if it were a country I knew in another life. My dead mother's gold necklace lived there, orange blossom perfume, half-used shampoo, electric toothbrush, frames my best friend made, earrings with dropped pearls, eye cream, red lipstick. It's easy to lose, really. You don't have to do anything. I did get to keep my baby, 5 weeks pregnant and home alone with greasy lo mein when the dryer caught fire. Despite the hiss of 2 fire extinguishers, the whole place ballooned with gray clouds. I had to convince myself to leave. Inside of me, there is also a drum, one that spins and whirs with the satin pajamas I meant to wash for my father, the mismatched socks of good intentions, a shirt soiled with a day's labor, babies past that might have been where I'd rather not have a child than have him be in a world with a father who didn't want them, and the baby we did choose, eyes closed, whose feet and hands reach for the surface of his own private sea. We now have a noise machine that helps baby fall asleep, and of all the sounds, waves, wind, birds, rain, it is the dryer sound that lulls him to sleep. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, hear it, think, fire. I check, my son is asleep. Okay, next photograph. I hope everyone can see. Okay, doctor bag. Deeper than you'd think, it can fit a sphygmomanometer, a stethoscope, syringes, medicine, bandages, and whatever unnameable cure that made me think that this bag contained miracle. The drug companies seduced the foreign doctors by gifting these specially engraved bags to the newly arrived. My father didn't want to leave home. He was comfortable drinking, playing poker, but my bossy math teacher of a grandmother never didn't take no for an answer. My father left Cebu for 40 years. He landed in the US with one suitcase, his MD, and $50. He had never known snow. He assumed the bus would take him from the airport to the doorstep of the hospital. A fellow Filipino passenger drove my naive father where he needed to go. I had a surgeon bear, and my father gave me this bag for surgeon bear's rounds. In it were real sutures, forceps, and gauze, and syringes, needles removed. Using the lap sponges, my father would show surgeon bear how to stitch a person closed, how to knot a knot so it wouldn't become undone, so the insides wouldn't come out. My father's knots are always tied tight. Nothing gets past them. I don't know where to put his ashes. I've hidden them behind a box next to my mother's. They're there even though I don't see them. I keep the bags out, both mother's and father's, both mother and father, half latched, waiting for me to be ready to heal. And this is the last photograph. Okay. Cut out. This photo hangs in my hallway because of how my mother looked. Her white headband, belt, high collar. The woman holding the baby is my father's sister, Tita. They no longer talk. There were intrigues that burned away at their relationship, squandering of inheritance money, making my father believe he wouldn't amount to anything, let alone the doctor he became. Tita married Sam Boyd. My father cut the picture. He couldn't stand to see it in my home. Some stories you only get scraps of here and there. He was a drunk, didn't work, wanted the appearance of rich even though they constantly borrowed. He beat her. Their son got in a drunk driving accident, killed a mother and 2 children. He's serving time, and my dad sends him cash every once in a while. Sometimes the world is reversed. You look through someone and instead of a face, get the rough pieces of rock, palm tree growing downwards, a rooftop at your feet. That can feel more real than a group of people smiling for a camera, for a moment posed, Who wants to remember anything beyond smiles? Wouldn't you cut out the bad if you could? And this is my last poem for the evening. I lost my father in February, and I've been wading through a lot of grief. And even many months later, this is still how I feel. The clocks have stopped for me, all while friends vacation to Rome, take taxis to airports, roll their suitcases, all while students submit their homework to another teacher, giggle in corners, excited a package is arriving for them that day. The clocks have stopped for me. The doctors have moved on to another body, someone else's father, another body to wash and prick and dress and test, another body to incise and suture, another body to drug, another heart, another vial of blood to draw, more platelets to count, another trend to chart. The clocks have stopped for me. I'm still holding my father's cold hand. He departs so fast. I am ready fast, while the world seems to be having lunch. I am penitent ice, whose hands are frozen in an unfinished prayer no one hears, all while the world goes on, writes its poems. The clocks have stopped for me, and my son calls my name while bulleting down the hallway. He's now tall enough to open doors, climb a chair, flip on the light. Wake up, Mama, wake up, he squeals. He dims the light when he sees my eyes' pain and brightness. Better, Mama? What time is it? I really don't know. He climbs into bed with me, spreads his body out on my chest, searching for milk I am still making. I don't refuse him. I am told the dead live on in me, but that feels as empty as a stopped clock. Outside in the dark alley, a lamp light flickers while I blow smoke out my bedroom window. I can't tell if the light is dying or coming alive. It's staccato to white, staccato to dark. I have decided this is my father now. My son doles out his graham crackers, one for Mama, one for Dada, one for Pappy, like he doesn't know he's gone, as if there's an invisible hand to take it, as if Pappy is still hungry. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Allison. I mean, those were stunning images, and what amazing narratives. They'll just stay with us. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome Sun Young. And this is her bio.
Thank you, Allison. That was gorgeous. Beautiful
Absolutely.
opening. Thank you, Matwaala, for including me in this beautiful reading. So happy to be here. Wonder if I could share my screen. Is that possible?
Yes.
I have some artwork and I wanted to share it. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I've made you a co-host, so you should be able to share.
Thank you. Okay. Can everyone see a red book?
Yes.
Great. So I also wanted to I'm going to read 4 sections from a long sequence in the middle of my latest poetry book, and I wanted to share the cover because it's by local to me, Minneapolis visual artist designer Christina Vang, who's Hmong American. So the book is called The Wet Hex. And Allison, I'm so sorry for your loss. My father died in February as well, but 2017. A number of these books, or these poems, are kind of about that or after that period. So, okay, I'm going to read maybe 3 or 4 sections of this poem called "The Underworld Holds All Tethers." Women in Korean myths disappear after giving birth. The reason they were born is to produce sons. But there is one myth where no female disappears. It is a fable of the foremother of shamans. Baridegi was the seventh daughter of a king and was abandoned because she was a girl. After she came back from a pilgrimage to the world of the dead, she saved her father and became the foremother of exorcists who help lead those who have died into heaven. So she's the myth, the indigenous myth of the first shaman. And this was a collaboration between myself and a Korean Canadian poet, Ginny Yu, and I would write a section of the poem, send it to her, then she would do a pencil illustration. Gaze, observatory, threshold, a Baridegi reimagining. 1. The king, a man under a gold hole, gave birth to a seventh daughter. The queen, under a second, smaller gold hole, turned herself inside out, but no sun could be found among the folds of her royal robes. The king took birth. Every child born is followed by a shadow child, their placenta. The queen delivered the placenta, and it jumped up and landed on the windowsill and flew away, leaving a necklace of blood drops on the ground below until it was out of sight. The king looked at his seventh daughter, and the four corners of the room turned black and empty and rose up and gathered around his head and engulfed him in darkness, as if he were an object in a bojagi. A thick, tight, invisible knot formed over him. He clapped his hands. The queen caught the air between her teeth. The king called for a box, 6 small doors attached at the edges, a small, movable grave. A servant brought a jade box and carved Baridegi on the cover, abandoned child. The newborn was placed inside the box, and the box was carried to a stream, and the stream decided to become thicker than jade, and thus the jade box floated along with the current. The stream made a rough green ribbon, a long door. A few drops of dark liquid fell onto the river as something flew by overhead. The water swallowed the memory, and it sank to the bottom among the stones. 2. The box called out to an old married couple passing by, cast away. The wife and husband bent over the stream and saw the jade box held by the layers of water. Have you seen water form a staircase? Did you emerge from your mother by way of water, knife, or an invisible rope of shame? The old woman lifted the heavy lid and beheld a small pearl. The old man looked, and he saw a square of fine white silk. Not until the child gave a hearty cry did they see that it was not a pearl, and it was not a square of silk, but a baby girl. Baridegi, Bari Gongju, princess abandoned. Concentric circles, salt, sand, glass, bone, blood. Only one person at a time can pass gracefully through a truly round door, no matter how big it is. When a square is placed within a circle, there's a surplus of unusable darkness. Three. Years passed like a door, glancing down at its own shadow, waxing and waning, opening, closing. Our skeleton inside us like a second person, the marrow thinking its rich red thoughts, the vertebral column stacked like wood. A fire cannot appear without its lover, air. A princess does not exist without a king or queen first. A king does not need a princess until. The child grew to be kind, hardworking, observant. As she rinsed the rice for the day's meals and the water grew cloudy and milky, she felt something clarifying in her spirit, as if starch were being washed away gently. Meanwhile, in the royal court, her father, the king, fell ill. Every medicine was brought to him. bark, seed, root, horn, organ, petal, oil, tea, tincture, spell, prayer, salt. Four. At the beginning of year 15, the king grew weaker and weaker. The queen said, I can almost see through you. You are becoming transparent in certain light. For example, the late afternoon. Perhaps your spine is made of hammered gold. The king said, I'm turning into air, into absence. Later that evening, the king fell into a deep sleep. His bed became a vast doorway. Its rich canopy became the eye of night. It blinked its fringed lashes. The king fell through the dark rectangle and kept falling. Five. The king slept. A dream entered him like smoke. The smoke formed into a parade of small things. An iridescent fish scale, a mottled gray pebble, a white scrap of cloud. The jury of things surrounded the king, outlining his body, began emitting a soft hum. He understood in his mind what they were telling him, that he was suffering and dying because of the seventh daughter he put into a jade box and pushed away like regret. If you would be well, your daughter must make a journey to the underworld. There she must obtain holy water and bring it back to you. But are you ready to be well? And I'll read, this will be the last one I read of this sequence. Six. Still asleep, he received a vision of her, the princess, with her arms raised, red ropes tied along each arm, making lines to the earth. For 2 more days, he slumbered. A maple tree grew up through the floor and around his platform bed. Black vines followed like 100 obedient children. On the 3rd day, the beautiful front gates opened, and the king's officials walked a girl into the compound. The current of air from the movement of the gates reached the king, and he opened his eyes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sanyang. I didn't want that to end. I felt I was transported back to childhood and I was listening to a bedtime story. It was hypnotic and riveting. And does it continue, or is that the last section? That's the way it ends. I could go on listening to that.
There's a little bit, there's more. She has to go to the underworld and
Oh,
come back.
I would love for all of you to share in the chat how we can get your books, because I definitely want to finish that story for myself. So, yeah, so please do share, where we can get your books and anything else about yourself. Just put it in the chat that you want to share. Thank you so much, Sanya. It was wonderful. I want to welcome Joshua Nguyen. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Joshua. Welcome. Really excited to have you. Thank you for reading and being here. Not reading, but you're about to read, but thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me with these incredible readers. And that was like so meditative. I felt like I was at the Rothko Chapel in Houston, like those big Rothkos, and I was like meditative. Like wow, that was really powerful. Thank you for reading. This first poem is based off the time I used to work food delivery, actually in Austin, Texas, from like midnight to 4 a.m. to help pay for college. So this is loosely based off an experience I had. So shout out to everyone who used to deliver food. This is called After I Was Mistaken for the Stripper while delivering barbecue to an all-white bachelorette party. 1. If I had a stripper name, it would be pork loins. Marinated in my mother's seasoning, I am mostly bone, but my butt is meaty. My neck is long, but you can still love me if you want a brisket. In the eventual end, it will be my own doing. You know, if I had a dollar bill for every human who wanted to see me naked, I'd still be paying loans back. Being wanted was never simmered. I am the lamb's wool and the wolf crying beneath thin skin, licked between my ribs in rich blandness. I am best served with oyster sauce. 2. And there I stood, a bag of meat, head in the crosshairs, unknown terrain, door closing behind, young deer in the trenches, stay motionless. Don't make the first move, kindled fire, feet too warm, apple between the teeth, arrow pointed to the navel, knives and forks and stomachs, lack of fat, sucked bones, upside down, blood draining, unconsciousness. Serpent at my throat, boiling rice. Serpent in my throat, not clean. Serpent down my throat. 3. Is this what being a sacrifice smells like? 26 jewel-studded cowboy boots circle me, tongues glistening in the spur of heat. The next poem I'll read, the next 2 poems are from this next manuscript I'm working on. Thinks about the end of it all and all its and all types of endings and what it means to be an artifact and what it means to be a body trying to survive and thrive. This poem is inspired by the fact that sometimes in like the poetry community, I don't feel like I belong because I'm not that into astrology. I know I'm Gemini rising. Who knows what that means? I'm sure a lot of y'all do know what that means. But this poem is called "The Last Poet on Earth Not into Astrology." The Mississippi fireflies blink in unison, shocked at my presence to find them all in glow, while the bright cratered earring in the sky paints the canopies wide with white tips. It's in retrograde, ripples downstream, but all I know is that the tide once sucked me under at Santa Monica Pier, my mother too invested in her magazines to pay me any mind. I claw on all fours on the ocean floor towards the shore. Did my Pisces moon call for a great young drowning? My Gemini will rise, a dead and alive child, in front of a grieving mother. Looks can kill, quote the moon. Its gravitational pull on my neck, stubborn to the shore. I persisted. Could be the Sagittarius in me. Could be the drive towards life, dead in all the wake. This next poem is also from the upcoming manuscript. I also feel like I'm the last poet who hasn't gone to therapy yet. So this is called "The Last Poet on Earth Not in Therapy." An armadillo arranges the tumbleweeds for my crocodile boots to traverse, maneuver, zigzag and swipe clods of East Memphis buffalo feces from sticking to the bottom. No stick or twig can scrape the calf strain or the plantar fasciitis off the weight placed on my legs. No foam roller or Theragun can unknot the Jackson Pollock of muscles in my back. Stress, fear, anxiety reside within me. Even before the apocalypse, before rusted awards and committed relationships, I thought nature could be mine as God, as inspiration, as mental stability. Each axe to a zombie's neck is still an axe to a tormented uncle or father that grows back again and again and again and again. And I can't pretend to talk to the willow anymore. I am stuck in the gap of the owl's cavity, head turned in all directions except home or hole or a greener pasture. Green pastures. I've mapped them all out, all just full of buffalo shit, wasp, and allergens that constantly alert my body that my body is something always wrong. And the last poem I will read also, it's right now the last poem of the manuscript. Again, I'm thinking about like what a poem could be within the tangibility of the reader. So all the book is inspired by Tahimid Jess's Olio, right? So in this manuscript, like I hope that people, rip out pages and fold corners and write in it. So I want it to be interactive, and so I can try to see what it means to have a book that hopefully, is an artifact in some different ways to different people. So this is the last poem from the tentative manuscript, and I really enjoyed reading these poems. It's actually my first time reading all these poems from the manuscript. So thank y'all so much for having me. Yeah, I'm having a great time listening to everyone. So this is called Artifact to be Found Beneath All the Rubble, for you or Milo. If you are reading this, let it be not under the pretense of hunger or the barren void of ash. In your hands, you hold me, all last breath and still breathing, because the warmth of your body makes me so. This artifact holds me, but I implore you to discard me in the way you found me. Let me continue to live in the commutes of the wind. Let me be a message from the past for the next weary traveler. Upcycle me into a material of your choice and perch me next to a window to watch the sun that is too close to earth. Use this body of text as compost around the lettuce that attracts the rabbits you hunt. Display me out over soil to block the weeds from growing, to use as a path to the cornfields. You have my permission to cut, fold, crumple, and bury this page. I will feel your love wherever I am useful, needed. What do you need? A page for the firewood? Scratch paper for an SOS? A makeshift vessel for all your herbs? My goodness, have me all. Your survival is my own, and we can live this cycle forever. But Milo, if this is you reading me, please keep me in the archive of your jacket pocket. Don't let this duplicate be a duplicate. Dog ear this corner and call it yours. I want to let you know that my body might have burst, but I survived in my quest to be with you again and forever. Know that you don't have to save the world if you don't want to. You are enough. You are alive. You are surviving. Nephew, all I want is for you to remember what the fire ants know when they raft in water. Remember what the loon knows when his baby shifts in sleep on her back. What the tides know when the moon extends their arm to feel less lonely. Listen to your feet. Listen to your body. Listen to your hands. Listen to your body. Listen to your body. Listen to your body. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you so much, Joshua. I just love the poignancy and also sometimes the humor in your poetry. Very moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. I think you reminded us about really the role of poetry all over again. The generosity very latent in the craft that we offer to the world. So thank you for that. I want to welcome Miho now. And we're posting her bio in the chat.
Hey, thank you. Sorry, I think I forgot the order because it changed a bit, and so I wasn't expecting it was me coming up next. But oh my goodness, Joshua, your poetry! I was still kind of trying to recover. I just love just so much energy and power. This clash from this purely lyrical impulse and also the ironic and savage. I just really loved it. Thank you so much. And I'm gonna start out by reading. Oh, I'm Miho Nonaka, and I'm from Japan. I'm actually Japanese. I'm not Asian American. Technically, even though it's expensive to be not be American. Okay, so I'm gonna read a poem called Kira Kira. And that's a phrase taken from Twinkle Twinkle in Japanese, the song. Kira Kira. Lying down on freshly laundered sheets, my 2-year-old reaches his hand up as if to catch faint stars in the ceiling projected from pinpricks in the plastic shell of Twilight Turtle. One of the gadgets we'd picked up at local Goodwill. It came with buttons that change colors: blue, green, and amber. Tonight, he chose green. Turtle's much abused back casts a tentative, blurry constellation. My son points to one particularly drawn out star, whispering, that. He shakes his head. No, that. I've never been this sure of anything I want. Gratitude comes slow for me, after the fact. After I received a strange gift I don't recall ever asking for. It keeps growing. I sing Twinkle, Twinkle in Japanese, and the child next to me is twisting his wrists in the greenish dark under the random configuration of stars. Hands like flowers, eager to lose themselves. And then the next poem, thank you, is called Winter Solstice, and that was kind of a pandemic poem for me. There's a thing, this thing called the starfish, and unlike Joshua, I need like a lot of sort of grounding skills and also what is it, like a mindfulness? Even the mindfulness exercises are all lost on me. I have a wild imagination. So when I try to put stuff on the leaf, on that, like in a stream or something, the stream like turns into cement. It doesn't move. Anyways, I don't do a very good job. But you know, I think that pandemic time was very anxiety provoking. And one of the skills I was told about was called starfish. Winter Solstice, 2021. Just as I think I can no longer take it, it happens. The Earth's axis tilts farthest away from the sun on my side of the hemisphere, an event outside of my mindscape. As I entered the dusk that kept pulling me downward like quicksand, I turned to practicing starfish. I stretch my arms, legs, fingers, and toes to their most expanded position, sending signals to my brain that I'm safe. No need to respond with the fight or flight response. Life is not worth living, wrote Seneca, if we indulge our fears to the greatest possible extent. if fear wins a majority of the votes, incline in the other direction anyhow. Now, strangers live in our house in Tokyo, where on the night of winter solstice, we'd eat golden pumpkin cubes cooked in soy sauce and mirin, take a hot bath infused with a citrus scent of yuzu, a ritual against catching a cold, against all evil forces. That was before Mother was unwell, her memory trickling down a hidden drain, her eyes gradually growing vacant. For the last 2.5 years, I've seen her only in dreams. Tonight, I open myself like a starfish in some cosmic aquarium. A child god eagerly reaches for my brittle center and 5 arms. Or one of the many in the ocean, spiny stars in various shades, wading through the bone-white sand. We tumble down the darker and the darkest bottom until the new day finally arrives, when the light outweighs the dark by the slightest margin. And I'm going to read from my book, The Museum of Small Bones. This really short poem. I wrote it like over 20 years ago, but this is based on well, there's the name of Princess Ogetsu, and she is one of the princesses who appears in the Kojiki. That's the oldest collection of Japanese creation myths that was compiled in early 8th century. And it's called When I Feel I'm Not Much Used to Human Society, which is pretty much how I feel all the time. And when I feel I'm not much used to human society. Think of a story of Princess Ogetsu, the unsparing goddess of food, how she was murdered and what came out of her body afterwards. Silkworms from her head, rice grains from her eyes, foxtail millet and azuki beans from her ears and nose, barley and soybeans from her belly. When I die, I will likely be an aquarium, bright and square as a little TV. My screen will show octopus eggs like a bunch of incandescent grapes, holding the words I didn't dare say when I was alive, but I wanted to say when I was with you. And I translated Louise Glick's The Wild Iris into Japanese. And I think at the time when she won Nobel, there's no Japanese translation of her full collection. So I was lucky to be able to translate it. And I thought I will read at least one poem, and first in the English original and then in Japanese, so that you can hear what it sounds like. The Red Poppy. And of course, that the speaker of this poem is the red poppy, the flower. The great thing is not having a mind. Feelings? Oh, I have those. They govern me. I have a Lord in heaven called the sun, and open for him, showing him the fire of my own heart, fire like his presence. What could such glory be, if not a heart? Oh, my brothers and sisters, were you like me once, long ago, before you are human? Did you permit yourselves to open once, who would never open again? Because in truth, I'm speaking now the way you do. I speak because I'm shattered. So in Japanese, 赤いひなげし。精神がないってなんて素晴らしいこと。感情？ああ、それなら持っています。それは私を支配するもの。私は天にいる太陽という主人のために、太陽という主人のために自分を開きます。彼の存在自体のように燃え立つ心を見せるために。心以外の何がここまで燦然と輝けるでしょう。親愛なる兄弟姉妹たちよ。人間になる前のその昔、あなた方も私のようではなかったかしら。一度咲いたら二度目はないにもかかわらず、 己を開くことを許しませんでしたか？なぜって今、私はまさにあなたと同じように話しているからです。心を打ち砕かれてから話しているのです。Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going
Wow.
to end with this poem by me, but this was inspired by Marie Howe's part of Eve's discussion, and also Gretel from a clearing, and Gretel through the wood. And so the speaker is supposed to be Gretel, Hansel and Gretel's. This is based on that story. And for me, I think being brought to America was a quite violent thing. And it kind of felt like I was falling into this unknown. And I felt quite betrayed by who abandoned me. Gretel through the wood. It was like getting lost in the wood, whose heart you enter one kind of person and emerge quite another. Isn't that what a story is? A beginning, an end, and whatever in between. A clearing where you find yourself one morning, few crumbs from the dark loaf you shared with him the night before. There's no more turning back home. There was no home. It was like falling out of a dream and waking up in another, not trusting your body would cast a shadow. The velvet of the moss means ears. The berries for snakes gleam just beyond your touch. Leaves are the birds who have sealed their songs in green. Beneath them all, the water couldn't run purer. You call him over and over, the name growing more foreign each time, like a city that belongs to someone else's dream. When you finally stumble into a world out of the wood, your mouth will have tasted earth, your words won't be understood but what they are. People grow restless when you sing fragments. They'll teach you poetry while bread keeps rising. Here, children become adults so quickly, you're the last girl whose shadow pulls on the ground at dusk. When the wind dies, you catch the sound of pollen falling gold between the trees. Even as you sing in a new way, their way, your song points to him for months and years until one day it doesn't. There are more voices you didn't know you have. Don't be afraid. You're being dreamed by someone outside this world every bloody step of the way in that story. More hearts to enter. Don't be afraid. You are abandoned. You have been dearly loved. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Miho. Your poetry for me, it calls upon the cosmic and the diurnal at the same time. And there's a tremendous rawness that's very, very real. So thank you for opening yourself like that in poetry.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
I would like to welcome Pichchenda Bao now. And I'm about to post her bio. And please do take some time to read those bios. It's a really stellar panel of poets with us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Usha, for inviting me to be a part of this reading. It's been so fun to listen to everybody's poems. Just so amazed by everybody's poetry. I just have a few poems today. I haven't really written a lot, really at all. And just this last week, I've just been writing. So these are like new poems. So we'll see how they go. Curse. Because I have no imagination, I'll tell you exactly what happened. When the door of the subway elevator opened, I dropped my toddler to the floor to let her walk on her own feet. A risk for sure. The brittle scabs on her knees were still clinging to the memory of her last romp. But she is speeding through her babyhood, and who can stop her? Besides, my arms were tired, my legs were tired, my head was tired, my heart, etc., etc. So I ignored the other woman in the elevator telling me to pick her up. Why did I sense no danger? Was it her accent, her matronly dress, her childbearing hips? Oh, she did not mean well, as she cursed me in her cold country language. Maybe just another reckless, relentless daughter, and she just could not take it anymore. How many times must I tell you? If this were the beginning of the end, it would make sense. Every day, my thinning hair washes away down the drain. Hot milk drips wasted from my swollen breasts, and my skin crawls with every off-kilter thing I ignore in the body. She was merely fast-forwarding a prophecy of disaster, all my unwritten books, my incomplete revenge. I stared at her and half smiled, like the true villain I am. I had no recourse against her, except my sturdy children who do not listen, and my knowledge of all our certain deaths. American Inquisition. Where are you really from? My face, made in a country that murdered its memory, is difficult to place. I am not an American, or so I've been told. You speak English so well. This isn't about you. It's not personal, but it is personal. You've heard this story before. You think you know the ending. You are wrong. I will give you 3 guesses. I come from a land of your atrocities, unacknowledged in the footnotes. A field of disposable bodies feeding your proxy wars, an elephant graveyard of your living history. Listen, I did not rise out of an unfathomable death toll to only become a story you use to spice up your dinner party. I am not your safe space. Let me guess. There is not a racist bone in your body. No harm intended. I mean, what proof of harm could I show? Who has spit in my face? Who has stopped me in my tracks? And if I were to fall into the fault lines of violence that make up this country, who will say my name? And I just have 2 more. Origin story. I knew I was a poet, not because when my father called me a despicable dog, his voice ragged with disappointment, I had known exactly where to stash the memory in my body, tucked it behind my gallbladder so no one would get hurt. I pretended like I was Rogue from X-Men, absorbing everything, like a sponge gone wrong with perfect function. No, I knew I was a poet because when ice encased the wide net of knobby branches of the common street trees, I saw jeweled blooms gleaming from the inside like a song come back from lost memory. No, it's not that poets only see beauty, following it like a migratory instinct. No, it's that once I saw leaves talking to each other, and after that, I couldn't stop those private moments from dropping into my day. A stunning weed growing out of the side of a building, the morning sun's ghostly costume behind clouds. Today, someone will ask me to write about war. Which war? Any war. So many wars come and gone and picking up where they started or ended, and I can write about it because I lived, brazen and eloquent, lush with specific and indistinct grief, while my father, born sensitive and dark like me, his future, his promise as a scholar, a musician, an artist, a lover and beloved of all beautiful things, starved to death in the miserable, insufficient rice paddies, along with all the others. And this is my last poem. Thank you so much. Recipe for Resilience, for Monica and Lehanra. Retrace your steps. You were here before in another life. Lead us into the sheltered trees. Let the air be oppressive, even in the shade. Let sweat gather at the hairline and pool in the small of your back. Let it be summer, days before the solstice, so the afternoon stretches out on the rain-softened path that opens to our own small refuge with a private view of water. Dream out loud. Dream in places we were never imagined. Dream up dreams beyond the borders of any imagination. Take pictures, laugh, and whenever someone else happens upon this space, let them know we're watching. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Pichchenda. Your poems are haunting. It's just brilliant how you blend the historical and the personal. Thank you.
Thank you, Pichchenda. That was absolutely beautiful. It's a poetry that takes us to silence, and I'm finding it hard to find words, really. Thank you. Our next poet is Deedle Tomlinson.
Hi everyone. Good evening. Usha, you had asked me, are there people here from the Philippines? Yes, there are. My family,
Wonderful.
friends.
We
Yes.
welcome all of them, Deedle. I'm glad they're here for you.
Yes, and from California, here in New York. Thanks so much for coming. And thank you also, Usha and Pramila, for inviting me to be a part of this prestigious event. I'm just so honored. I loved hearing everyone's pieces. Anyway, my first poem was written after we came out of the COVID pandemic lockdown, when the future still seemed uncertain. Finding home. And I have an epigraph from Stevie Winwood, a song. It goes, and I ain't done nothing wrong, but I can't find my way back home.
Oh.
An island, one of 7,641 in the Philippines, the island of Luzon, my home back home. An island ringed all around with azure waters that glow in the dark, like the time I walked along the beach in Anilao one night, and it looked like a sky full of stars fell to the sea and gathered along the water's edge. An island of rivers, so many of them, like the Pansipit River in Batangas, land of mangoes and sugar canes, the river that runs by my cousin's farm in San Nicolas, the same river where once the dead were ferried to Taal. The farm, they say, is haunted, inhabited perhaps by spirits who couldn't find their way home. This I know to be true. I felt their eyes on me the day I visited. I whispered prayers and pleas to please not follow me home. Today, I still live near water, the Narrows in Brooklyn, far from my home in the Philippines. On foggy mornings, I sometimes hear a horn call out, the sound drifting up the streets of Bay Ridge from a ship sailing blind in the mist, going steady as she goes, just hoping to make it to the other side. And this next poem, thank you, is based on a childhood memory, and it's called Guts. The cocinera hunched over the white sink, a bangus from the wet market in her hand, the crick of a knife scattering fish scales all over like rainbow sequins. The tinny sound of Neil Sedaka singing from a transistor radio on the windowsill. I love my calendar girl. Yes, sweet calendar girl. Blood, stark red against the whiteness of the basin, the iron smell of it when she cuts open the milkfish and removes the entrails. I love my calendar girl, each and every day of the year. With thumb and two fingers, she grabs hold of the gills and pulls them out. Under running water, she washes all traces of blood and guts, then lays the bangus carefully on the chopping board. I love my calendar girl every day of the year. I can't recall how old I was when I asked the cook if I could help her clean the next bangus, and she drew up a tungtungan with her foot so I could step up, stand by the sink, help pull out guts, then hold the fish in my small hands under cool running water till the kitchen no longer reeked with the smell of blood. And my next two poems are in a form called The Golden Shovel. It was created by the poet Terence Hayes. And it involves taking a line from, or a number of lines from an existing poem and using the words in that line as the end words of your own poem. And this first Golden Shovel deals with an event that deeply affected me when I was 15, along with my classmates in Assumption, which was an all-Catholic girls' school. And this was back in 1978. I took a line from a Gary Copeland Lilly poem called Our Lady of the Birds. And that line is, and birds rise like prayers in her hands. For Elle, when she stepped up to the ledge and peered into the darkness, the birds still asleep, the sun still to rise, did she wonder before she jumped what life would be like for her mother and father, whose prayers appeared not to reach God in the moment of her despair, a rosary clutched in her hands.
Mhm.
And so like Allison, I lost both my parents. In fact, my father passed away in February of last year. And it was followed by my mother's death in November. And this second Golden Shovel poem takes a line from a poem by the Greek poet Yanis Ritsos called Forgetfulness. The line is, thus after dark, the dead return home to retrieve something they left behind. I dedicate this to both my parents, to my youngest brother, Joey, who's watching this, and to my eldest sister, Vivian. Felt presences, ang mga nagpaparamdam. Your father is gone, and now your mother. Thus you prepare yourself to receive those who wish to condole. After they've gone, you sit in the dark and wait for the souls of your father, your mother, not long dead, to come home again. They return a welcome presence. Their home is now yours, and you don't mind that they come to walk the halls, going room by room to retrieve something they loved, something they couldn't let go, something left behind. And I'm going to read my final poem, but before that, I invite you all to visit our website, New York Writers Workshop. And for those who are in New York, we will be at the Brooklyn Book Festival this Sunday, October 1st. So this last poem is an homage to my late father in a place that held deep meaning for me because it was my first time to visit it. And it was with my mom and dad and my husband, Tim. And again, my sincerest thanks to all who came tonight. Pagudpud. When I am lost in thought, find me. Peel back the top of my head and find me back in a dream I had last night of being in water, in a boat on water just before a storm. And then recalling something a Hawaiian poet said, Ola I Kawai. Water is life. Find me back in 2015, standing on the edge of the northernmost tip of the Philippines, on the shores of Pagudpud in Ilocos Norte. Seen from outer space, the Philippines is a dog lying on its side. I imagine I am standing on its head. I bury my toes in the wet sand, waves around me breaking, then receding. My father is watching from a van behind me. Even now, my father watches, but from a higher place. Spirits, they say, use water to speak. My father lives in dreams, his voice somewhere above the hiss and sizzle of sea foam. If I listen close enough, I hear him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deedle. That was lovely. I mean, your poems are not just cinematic, but there's a certain wisdom in the poems that clearly come through. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. It's a great heart in your poems, Deedle. Just open doors for people to enter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That really means a lot to me. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
care. Thank you.
Thank you. We are looking forward to the next poet, Frances Kai-Hwa Wang. I'm putting her, getting to try to get this bio. Yeah, there she is. I think I should mute myself here.
Oh, it's my turn to start. Okay. I was waiting for someone to tell me to start. It's great to be here. I love Matwaala. What a great group. But so I wanted to pick with our theme of flavors of verse and with this kind of cross-cultural idea, I wanted to pick a few pieces that kind of cross cultures in a way that and find some commonalities that I think we can all relate to. So this is a selection from my new book, You Cannot Resist Me When My Hair is in Braids. It's just a selection from a piece I have here. Oh, I should back it up. So when I was 25 years old, I married an anthropologist and went overseas for 4 years, and I lived in Kathmandu. And because of my age at the time, a lot of people just assumed I was a Peace Corps volunteer. So I spent a lot of time with Peace Corps volunteers. But, and it was interesting to see how I understood and learned about Nepali culture as a Chinese American, as opposed to the way some other people who were there trying to learn. And so I always had a lot of fun there. So the Peace Corps volunteers in Kathmandu are laughing about the Nepali families who keep asking them, did you eat rice yet? Bat kanubayo? No, I had noodles. Wrong answer. Is the salt okay? Noon tikcha? No, a little too salty. Again, wrong answer. The young Americans hear the words, but they do not understand. Am I the only one here not laughing? It is the same in Chinese. Ni chi fan le ma? Have you eaten yet? And who can forget the soy sauce scene in the Joy Luck Club? Regardless of whether you answer yes or no, your answer should always be yes, by the way, the aunties will sit you down at the table with a fresh bowl of rice for more. As the Black Lava t-shirt says, did you eat means I love you. And on that theme of aunties, I think the concept of aunties certainly crosses a lot of cultures. And this is a piece, this is a pandemic piece. It's funny how we have all of those now, but this is called Sewing Aunties, sewing S-O-W-I-N-G, because all of us had those pandemic gardens at the time. And at the same time, I also, one of my aunts passed away and I went to clean out her house and she had there was a lot to clean out. And so I think I'll just say that much. Sewing aunties. He laughed at me and my family for saving and reusing tofu containers, green onion rubber bands, plastic ties, twist ties, takeout containers, glass jars, cookie tins. And he took it upon himself to secretly throw away all that we had carefully saved and washed and stored away. He thought it made us small and poor to reuse. He was big and rich enough to go out to the store to buy things new. He even opened and ate all the boxes of chocolates people gave us as gifts, quote, to take them out of circulation before we could regift them to someone else. Regifting wasn't even a word then. It was just normal. He said he did not have to recycle because he recycled enough in the 70s. When I speak to Asian American student groups and tell them that there are people in the world who throw away all the green onion rubber bands and then go to Office Max to purchase new rubber bands, the entire audience gasps. At any auntie's home, the world comes full circle. Shoes off at the door, stacks of tofu containers by the kitchen sink, green onion rubber bands looped on the faucet, plastic bags full of plastic bags, kitchen towels sewn from rice bags, twist ties in the chopstick drawer, giant soy sauce can under the sink, big detergent containers and cardboard boxes carefully cut into new shapes for new purposes, old children's toys transformed into tools couched in memory. Have you eaten yet? 你吃饭了吗? As code. Auntie greets me wearing a blue monkey Aeropostale sweatshirt I remember my cousin wearing in the 90s. We eat from plastic Hello Kitty bowls and plates, the same ones we used when I was small. The secret cupboard full of candy and red envelopes is still stocked. I checked. When she sees a tear in the knee of my jeans, she tells me to go fetch her cookie tin so she can mend it. She lets me go shopping in her closet. She sends me home with a huge pile of leftovers, packaged in a variety of plastic takeout containers and vegetables from her garden, wrapped in last week's Chinese newspaper. Auntie does not think in environmental terms. She does not calculate the economics of her garden, full of the flavors of home that she cannot buy, from jiu cai to persimmon trees. She fertilizes with eggshells and tea leaves, and her garage is full of dried seeds for next year. Despite a long, successful career in America, she still does not buy anything full price. When I buy her a CSA for the quarantine so that she does not have to go to the grocery store so often, she complains that $16 a week for vegetables is too expensive. Auntie fights with the heron who hovers by her pond. Those are my fish, not the bird's fish. So it goes on, but we'll stop there. And I hope this brought to mind all sorts of folks. Okay. Wow, time flies. Okay, this is a piece called Lost Constellation, which I wrote in response to a Vietnamese artist called Dinh Q Le, who or Lee, I'm not sure, but he physically weaves photographs of himself into other photographs. And this one I was asked to respond to by the art museum was a photograph of the Buddha and Jesus, and he wove himself into the photo, which is kind of cool. Sometimes I feel lost among the stars. You could trace the constellation of my body, the constellation of my life, shattered and scattered. Arms and legs and hopes and dreams splayed out across the heavens, lying flat on my back in the grass as my children run and blow bubbles in the sunshine, lying flat on my back in the street as cars surge past, the breath knocked out of me, lying flat on my back in a boat, seasick, floating across the planet to a new life free of famine and war. Coming from one tradition, growing up in another, and choosing to take the best of both to create something new. We stand strong because we are woven out of the stories, traditions, food, and audacity of our immigrant and refugee elders. Not just a cute boys pickup line, we are a zigzag path of lights as we forge new identities and create real lives in this place. The recent surge of violence targeting Asian American elders and women across the country has artists and activists responding with art and creative community-based solutions, interracial solidarity, and allyship. Asian American aunties sew masks for Native American communities. Black and Latino volunteers walk with Asian American elders, and a diverse coalition of activists and restaurants fill refrigerators and donate free meals. Together with our elders and sisters, we step forward to weave the night sky, night after night. Together with our elders and sisters, we step forward and fall in love with this life of work, family, joy, and sacrifice. Together with our elders and sisters and brothers, we step forward to build the bridge of magpies to bring together the beloved community where everyone is welcome, seen, fed, housed, reunited. We are home. So I forgot to mention that the last part, when we were talking about the Bridge of Magpies, that references the Chinese Qixi festival, which is Chinese Valentine's Day, which, long story short, the weaver maiden who weaves the night sky falls in love with a cowherd on Earth, but she's not allowed to do that because the night sky doesn't get woven and they're separated, right? The gods separate them. But one night out of the year, in August usually, all the magpies in the world feel sorry for them. So they all congregate and they create this bridge over the Milky Way so that the cowherd can run across and meet his love, the weaving maiden. And I will end with one last piece. I hope we have time for one more. This is, you cannot resist me when my hair is in braids. Sitting in Sweetwater's cafe for the afternoon with a pot of Earl Grey tea, trying to write, trying to put off looking for a day job, trying to figure out how to construct a new beginning out of all this financial ruin, all the while watching the cute boys walk past my window on this cold gray day, wishing for some handsome young professor to walk in and flirt with me for a bit. I've got my hair in braids today. You cannot resist me when my hair is in braids. Thank you, Matwaala, for letting me be a part. And thank you all the other poets. It's great hearing all your stories.
Usha, you're muted.
Okay. Thank you, Frances. They were just absolutely delightful poems, leaving me smiling. I just wish we could go on for another hour, but unfortunately, we're down to the last reader, the last poet, Bryan. And I just wanted to say, tongue in cheek, that you haven't been recognized by the American Academy of Poets, but we at Matwaala, we do recognize you and we do welcome you. And you'll see why I say that when you read Bryan's bio, which ends with a little lament about, let's see, the last line of his bio. It's not copying here because so that's the last line of Bryan's bio, which is why I said, well, at Matwaala, we do recognize you. For some reason, it's asking me to break up your bio because it's too long. So believe me, it isn't that short. So I'm getting to it. So that's the first part, and this is the second part of it. So there we are. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. All right, Bryan, stage is yours.
All right. Well, again, thank you all so very much for coming out here tonight. This is so wonderful to see so many voices brought together, the diversity of it all, the flavors, the range of stories. to tell. This is a particularly momentous occasion for those of us in the Southeast Asian diaspora, because for those of us from Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, it marks 50 years since the Paris Accords and the Case Church Amendment, which brought an end to the United States presence in Southeast Asia, the end of the Vietnam War, the secret war in Laos, and the bombings of Cambodia then. And so that comes with a particular weight for me as I look at the journey and see the next generation and so many of my generation trying to find out, how do we dare to respond to this through poetry? This weekend has also been the Festival of Ghosts for many of our communities. Then when the dead are let out from the underworld for a day to recommune with their family, their friends, their relatives, and so on here. And so I'm going to take a couple of poems then that try to speak to all of that. And I hope that this is just simply the beginning for so many of us in the future. But this comes from my most recent book, Before We Remember, We Dream, which was released in 2020 during the pandemic, which was a heck of a time to send the book out into the world. Sticky Rice Blues. I've seen it 1,000 times in a dozen years, read the rules, watched the videos, talked it over until someone's turned a different color. You never feel less Asian than days you burn the rice. But it's possible, even with a brand new bamboo steamer, a fistful of carnel, some heat and water. Some days it's easier to be a cat in a temple, a morning fog, a frog splashing into a pond, a hungry ghost on a holiday, waiting for a bell from hell to ring. Now, this year it turns out that it is also the 90th anniversary of King Kong, even as it's also the 50th anniversary since the end of the US secret war in Laos. So we'll just do the poem, My Secret War Within. The first film in the world to feature Lao was Chang, by the man who would one day film King Kong with Fei Ray. He never returned to the heirs of Lanchan, but he died among New Year's and April Fools in the year I was born, when covert American bombs stopped falling like steel rain over the realm of 1,000,000 elephants. Dr. Dooley played Dumbo for us in the hills, flying pachyderms and talking crows, useless feathers, something about belief. While ravens, fans of Poe, dug into the plain of jars, and we made our fresh ghosts for the next generation. I never understood their stories until years later, when my father, almost dead from 1,000 smokes, referred to them as heroes, pointing to a portrait of a young boy who could have been me in another un-American lifetime, by these men, M16 in hand, smiling for a reporter's camera. On the edge of Detroit, I grew up among Godzilla films, the aliens of UHF, alarming, relentless, a comfort more family than the silent faces of Apocalypse Now, or slinky women who promised love for a long time, if I understood American dollars and full metal jackets. My teacher tries to show me the Joy Luck Club, Air America. Here is the truth of who you are, surely. I return to Alien Nation, Enemy Mine, They Live, the Thing. My love says, I can't tell my story talking about other people's films. No one's seen half of what you've watched. No one's seen half of what I've lived, I reply, trying to shred my life into ink just to remain. Matty Doe made a ghost movie the other day, Chantali, shows me. We can't talk about the worlds we've had, our wars gone by, her crazed ghosts, my. Little Louse on the Prairie magazine gets a letter from a man who wants to make a movie about our war. Says he knows a great place to shoot in Hawaii. Same but different. Spread the word. Send some cash. He has a cause, his special vision, if not for facts. I lost his number and cast my father's ashes into the Mississippi. The last I heard, he now wished he'd spoken to assassins instead. Song for a Sanse. I remember her story of a white life that took some getting used to. White family, white holidays, white food, codfish, cauliflower, vanilla pudding, potatoes and gravy, poultry, etc., etc., etc. A life of snow in which I too find a mirror of I am, not necessarily followed by made of, perhaps simply among with love, but you can't help in a world like this. I'd meditate more on her graying words, but the jazz-soaked bartender at the edge of this dark room is reminding me we only get 5 minutes each to talk about our own yellow lifetimes. The Buddha of Bombees. There are more cluster bombs than people in Laos. They stopped falling in the year I was born. America left soon after. The other day, a young woman I know saw people turning war scrap into fashionable bracelets. No one considers turning them into statues of Buddha. Recycling only goes so far out here. A third of those who die every year are under 12, caught in the hot, swift center of flame and shrapnel, dormant for nearly 5 decades. Most of their parents weren't even born when these lethal leftovers were dropped. In America, my nieces sing, "London Bridge is falling down." In Laos, my nieces sing, "Not to touch the Bombees." My new next-door neighbor is an old F-105 pilot my father picked up from the Hanoi Hilton. He knows my country well, but we don't have much to talk about, except our gardens. My cousin flew into Afghanistan at the start of a new war. We haven't spoken in years. I look at the pictures of hell in my mother's temple in Modesto. It's a new year, and young children run with toy guns sold to them by a vendor who could care less about karma and history. Our monks bless every living thing in sight, hoping it will do some good for a change. This is a new piece coming up in the issue of Agony, engaged with the questions of transcultural, transracial adoptees. And this is one I haven't read before here, but it feels like the right place to kind of try it out on all of you. Cycles like a shapeless child. I found my family 30 years after the end of a secret Southeast Asian war. People always ask, how did it feel? They have replies that they hate the replies that include sci-fi, old Thai ghosts, a monk who longed to be a poet's father so badly he lied. Reunions are worth seeking, but like Oedipus, it's a roll of shaved dice in a comedy of strangers. As a teen, I didn't dare date Asians, fearing we were siblings. After finding my family, I learned the gulf was too wide to stay with someone from the same place. Still, I got a poem to read at the Olympics about a sacred ancestral peak that I once crossed. Yesterday, I saw a picture posted online of a new child, another adoptee welcomed into the world, certainly related. Another was announcing their latest divorce. The word processor tries to convince me adoptees is a typo. Well, I remember a woman who told me indignantly, you can't adopt babies from Laos, period. For a hot second, I didn't exist, or I was a liar. One niece has a deported father who escaped the killing fields. Point blank, she asked me over Christmas dinner, why, I keep coming as if I belong. She's 4. I think of a baby of mine, aborted, a journal about grinding up stones, a poet who turned their back on me because one night beneath our were-tiger moon, I said their writing was universal, but bloodless. Two final pieces. A poem from the Olympics that I was talking about. Well, 20 years ago in the old Lao capital. On a stairway in Luang Prabang. Step as you will through life. 1,000 ways, 1,000 places. Carry a home in your heart or spend years seeking the door where your soul will always smile. Do you ease the way for others or just yourself? Do you climb great mountains just to leave them unchanged? One day, the heights of holy Mount Fuji will lay as soft valleys, and we, only memories. But our children's children, will they too have reason to smile, like those dreaming strangers who finished their stairs for us? And so it seems only fitting. I'll close this with one final poem in the spirit of friendship, in the spirit of poetry, the joy in community, with thanks to Matwaala for such an ambitious reading, and thanks to everyone who supported it and stayed so long to hear all of this. We're closing out with a poem called When Among Romans. She warns me sternly to remember, after all of these years, I'm coming back to a Lao home, Lao family, Lao customs upon the agrarian outskirts of Modesto. You have to eat the Lao food they serve you, no complaining, even if you didn't grow up with it. Besides, it will be delicious. My nieces and nephews welcome us in, taking our shoes off by the door, smiles and sabaidees. Shown to the table, we're informed. Everyone's ready for Easter and Pi Mai Lao, Lao New Year. It's Taco Wednesday tonight with nachos and hot dogs, spaghetti and papaya salad, some brisket and gel. I eat politely, as home here as anywhere, with a smile. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you, and please enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Bryan.
Thank you, Bryan. I don't think I've ever heard a voice that's so disarming and so steely at the same time. Thank you. Thank you. I think I'm feeling a bit saddened that this is coming to an end. But I do want to say thank you for this tapestry of beginnings, endings, and realms in between, for calling our attention to art, fable, myth, cultural markers, their erasure and triumph, motherhood, the dissolution and reemergence of identity, your poetics, our mortality, our homelessness and homing. Thank you, all of you, for reminding us that poetry's mission is to open doors for us to enter. Thank you. So Pramila is the timekeeper.
Yeah,
I'm
we've
not
reached
sure
the
if
end
we
of
have.
our time,
Yeah.
but maybe there might be like 1 or 2 questions that anyone wants to ask. So I invite the audience or even the poets themselves, they can ask a question of each other. If you've been looking at the chat, there have been fabulous comments about everyone's work. I had a question, and that was about, can you talk, anyone, I mean, can you talk a little bit about how you bring in the history that you come from and the history that we carry with us, even though we may not have grown up in the home country. Our parents and grandparents, tell us about whatever was happening, or they may not even speak about it. How do we bring the historical and at the same time write about some of our personal experiences? Like, is there anything that I know that some of you have been using photographs and, bringing in mythology and stories? Yeah, Deedle, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, with regards to at least one of the poems, The Golden Shovel, I think I mentioned that was based on a traumatic incident. I don't know if it's the same way with others, but sometimes finding the right form can help you write out, this a trauma or something that that if you were to write it any other way, it might have sounded too emotional, maybe too maudlin, because there's so much you want to say. And so I don't know, I guess Ravi's not here, but he's always talking about constraints and how constraints are actually great in like just keeping you focused on writing more powerfully, I guess.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed with Bryan, your poetry, is that you were in one of the poems you were using films as a way to talk about the stark difference in the realities of the home country and the country that you're living in. There's such stark realities of differences in the realities in the histories.
I think it's a big challenge that we are always looking for, additional metaphors that help us reframe things. One of the things that made approaching, that search for home and our heritage, particularly effective for me was, becoming comfortable with the idea that poetry allows us to work with memories a little bit more piecemeal, than in a nonlinear fashion. That is to say that in looking for stories that are maybe not immediately available to us, or memories that are hard to confront at one particular time, you suddenly just say, okay, but I have maybe a memory from 1983, and I'll just work on that for a bit. And then I suddenly find I've got a memory from 1986. I've got a moment from 1977. And all of a sudden, they don't necessarily come in order, but then over time, you can decide for yourself if you want to put it into a manuscript, into a collection, order it, then in the normal way we think about it. Or you can kind of play a bit of a game of hopscotch, I suppose, with your memories and appreciate the way that too is a valid way that memory works. What comes to the forefront for you, what recedes into the background as the important elements. We always think it's always supposed to be, we laser in on the same things everyone else seems to laser in. No, it's like, this is your memory, this is your story. And it's like, you may say, oh, I should have been paying attention to that important person in the room, but I'm really paying attention to that dish that was at the buffet. That's valid. It's like, it's like that was what we were paying attention to. It's like, I think those stories have great weight and power to it too.
Thank you.
No, I think it's a wrap, Pramila. I think we're on to 7:45.
Yeah.
We may have to wrap up. Unfortunately, this was our 6th reading this year that we hosted. The last one's in December. We will keep you informed, and I think it's going to be a panel not to be missed. Pramila has done a lot of translation work with Dalit poets. And I think it's going to be just a fantastic lineup in December. We hope to see many of you. Please be in touch. And thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you all
Very
very much.
exciting. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for organizing and inviting us.
Thank you too. And thanks also to my sister in the Philippines. Good morning to them.
Bye,
Bye.
Deedle sister.
Bye. Bye, Indran. Bye, Usha. Bye, Pramila.
Bye, Deedle. Bye, Frances.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
Indran.
Deedle. Bye, Pramila. Bye.